Hey buddies, welcome to Writing Challenge Day 8. No, Day 9. Day 9. We're getting so close. I came in today knowing what I wanted to talk about, and it was about story arc and creation. And I think I'm going to get to that tomorrow because I've had another subject matter topic arise today that I really want to chat with you guys about. This is one that I have strong opinions and feelings on, but no answers. So this is going to be fun. I'd be really curious to know what your own thoughts and experiences were, and I'll just start by sharing my own experience and we'll see where we get to. Something about which I am quite passionate is that artists need to be able to make a living creating their art. And I say that, and it's a very bold statement, and I think that there are a lot of people who are artists. Some of them are quite famous, Soman Chainani, Elizabeth Gilbert, and they in their lives did not put weight on their art in so much that they did not expect it to make them money and make them a living. They're of the mindset that do not place that kind of pressure on your art because it will influence your art in a way that is more desperate as opposed to a place from inspiration. So they say, keep another job, something that pays you, your day job, and then just let your art be free and be your art. And I can see that too, and I think that has its merits. I can agree with that. I've had to do that myself also. But what I want to get at more is that we as a society have trained people to expect art to be free. Right behind me, there's beautiful artwork. I don't know how to point to it. Our town is the oldest creative district in Colorado. There's a lot of art around that people get to witness and experience for free. It's common for musicians to play at a bar and you go and you get a drink, but it's sort of that they're playing for free. Musicians will play for free, artists will do art installations, and performers will put on presentations and musicals, and generally they are, not generally, but sometimes they are for free. And sometimes they are not. And what I'm getting at is that I think as artists, we've created a difficult situation in that we put on our art and we hope that it will be supported and that people don't automatically know to support our art. They expect it to be free. To get personal about this, if you don't know, I do a one-woman play of my memoir, and I host discussions around grief. I do facilitation, I lead mindfulness practices, and having it come off the tail end of a performance is a really unique setup because I think that storytelling has a way of letting us access our own emotions and experiences in a way that feels safe and not too personal. So sometimes when we're talking about our own story, we get really hyped up and our emotions and our physicality takes over and we're not really able to sink into the experience. And I think storytelling has a way of allowing somebody to come along with me on my story, my journey, that they're able to tap into their own experiences in a way that's safe and that's also held by the immense group. So anyway, I put on these performances and host these discussions. And what I found, they've gone amazingly. It's one of my favorite things that I'm doing in my life right now. And I love it. And I found that it's a very particular skill. It takes a lot of my time. It takes a lot of my creation. It is a creative thing that I have birthed into the world, and that there is an expectation that it should be free or that I shouldn't make money off of it. And those are two very different things. And so I've come up against this challenge of I have this thing, I want to share it with the world, and it is costing me money to be able to put it out there. And I want it to be more accessible to more people. It's not that I want it to be at a rate that only certain socioeconomic brackets are able to see it, but I want it to be supported so that I can also offer it for free at times. And so I think as creatives, we're up against this challenging situation that we continue to perpetuate. And it's not just creatives. I was a yoga teacher. I am a certified yoga teacher. I'm not currently teaching, but while I was teaching yoga, that was another thing that I was on both sides of the coin. I started off as a yoga student, complaining about how expensive it was to go to yoga classes. And then I was a yoga teacher, wanting it to be accessible to people. but finding it was really hard to make a living teaching yoga. And that's because a $20 class does sound like a lot, but it has to be cut between the studio and the teacher, and sometimes the class doesn't have that many people in it. So there's this question of value. What value are you offering? And again, like I said, I don't really have answers right now. I'm doing a lot of experimenting and exploring on my own of how do I convey value? How do I set rates? How do I build a model that will be sustainable for me and for others? I'm not trying to become a billionaire off of doing these things. If someone wanted to give me $1 billion, I would not turn it down. And I think that we a lot of us find ourselves in this place that art also costs us time, investment, money to put into it. And we want to be able to get something back so that it's sustainable, so that we don't feel like we get into this scenario where, oh, well, now I have to go become a dental hygienist, as my parents always said I would, because art, it doesn't support people and it was a frivolous thing to do. I don't think that it has to be that way. I think art and creativity is one of the most important energies that we have in our world, and that in some ways it heals and helps perpetuate our culture in the direction that it needs to go. I'm so into Hamilton right now. I'm like a year behind, but that would be one example. I had one lesson that I was going to share with you that I've learned. Oh, yes. So I think that the question that you have to ask yourself as you're on this journey with me, as we're all figuring this out, I was just chatting with a friend before this, seeing if she had any thoughts. She owns a beautiful store. She hosts a lot of musicians, and she wasn't quite sure. There's no real model to help us out with this. One thing that you do have to explore is your own internal work around your value. And this might be at the crux of it for us creatives, because some of us tend to be insecure and we don't know what our value is. And especially outside of Broadway, which does have some set parameters as to what you can expect. I don't know what a one-woman show about my life, after which I host a discussion, is how it's valuable, and what the cost would be. So in order to invite in this journey of figuring out what value do you have to offer in all sorts of creative ways, not just creative, also as a yoga teacher, also as a dental hygienist, also as an accountant, but especially when you're paving your own way to some extent, just be with yourself for a little bit. Be with yourself. Ask yourself, where does your passion lie? What do you have to offer to the world that is unique to you, that no one else has done or no one else can do in the exact same way that you can? No one can write the story about my life, which is a little bit of a cheap example, the way that I can. Nobody was able to write the musical Hamilton the way Lin-Manuel Miranda was. And even though value and cost and rate and income, they're slippery slopes, they're difficult to talk about. I think it involves a lot of experimentation. The least that we can do as creatives is start by asking ourselves, what do I have to offer? And then start testing it. Don't be afraid to test it out in the world, experiment with it, and see what feedback you get. I've received a lot of amazing positive feedback about my performances, and even though I might be insecure about them as myself as an actor, whether or not I'm able to actually host discussions around grief, who am I to host discussions around grief? I'm 28, whatever story comes up. Those examples will help you recalibrate and orient towards the population that you're trying to reach, towards the message that you're trying to share with the world, and towards the format through which you can share it in a way that will be sustainable. Income and value, dollar sign value included. And it's scary for us to be able to say, well, I'm a speaker, I'm going to come in and I cost $5,000 for a half day. That's really scary. But something that I've heard from other people, and I'm starting to experience myself a little bit, is once you set your value, you'll be surprised by how many people will rise to that and see it as more valuable because in some way that they've understood, you've said, this is what this is worth. Again, it takes experimentation. It probably takes doing things for free. I don't think that it's a bad thing that creativity and art is offered for free. I don't think that we do it because we're trying to self-sabotage. But I think that there's a lot of testing that we need to do. and results that we need to accumulate to start getting a feel for how can this be something that sustains me. Maybe I will have a day job for the rest of my life, and I will also write New York Times bestsellers. I mean, Soman Chinani, who has New York Times bestselling series called The School for Good and Evil, continued working as a tutor for, I think it was SAT prep testing tutor, until he got a movie deal. He was already a New York Times bestselling author, and he still didn't trust it. So we all have our own journeys, but this is something that I've come up against a couple of times. I'd be fascinated to know what you guys have experienced, what your thoughts are. I think we're more afraid to ask for our value than someone else is to give it to us. But there's a level of being able to know what our value is, and again, it's experimental, you test, and then sticking to it, and then conveying that yes, this is valuable, as opposed to downselling ourselves. Oh, well, some people have found this helpful, and I'm not entirely sure, and I'm nobody, and I'm not certified, and don't have a degree, or whatever. No more of that. We need to start owning our value. We need to start exploring what it is that we have to offer to the world that's unique, and we need to start working with our communities, our societies, the world, to let them know that creativity and art is one of the most valuable things in the world, and that you don't need to be at the top tier Broadway actor, which people on Broadway don't always get paid that much either, in order to be able to sustain life off of it. This was a bit long, and I hope it wasn't too much of a rant, but this is something that I've encountered continuously for the last year and a half. It's been really intriguing to me. It's something I'm still exploring. I'll continue sharing with you what I discover and learn, and I'd be curious to know what you guys have learned in the process too. Okay, friends, back to my chai tea, back to my writing, where I hope I'm putting value out into the world eventually, and we'll chat tomorrow.